Welcome out to another episode of It's All Been Done Radio Hour. This week is another Meet the Cast, although this should be called Meet the Script Editor. Jerome, that's myself, sits down with Shannon Marie Watts, who is one of our current script editors, Keith Jackson being the other one, helping us look for continuity and those sorts of things. Shannon had also guest starred a number of times with the troupe, but sadly moved far away before she was able to be added to the cast on a more regular basis. So now she helps us remotely in other ways. Before we begin, we need to thank Mad Lab Theater, our wonderful host site. Our third anniversary show is coming up on Saturday, July 14th at 5:30 p.m. We have a special stand-up comedian opening for us, Travis Irvine, at 5:15. He'll also be guest starring in the show. So head on over to madlab.net/tickets and go ahead and get yours for the anniversary. Last year we almost sold out, so you may want to get them early. I also want to thank It's All Been Done Presents, our parent network. It's an entertainment network based in Columbus, Ohio, with podcasts, written work, video series, and more. One of the programs on there, or rather two of the programs on there, are Stark Story Snacks and G.O.D. is My BFF. Both of these are written series that come out weekly in season batches. So G.O.D. is My BFF ran for 4 seasons. The complete series is available through our website, as well as through Amazon.com. Stark Story Snacks completed its 2nd season run this spring. Those are micro stories, only a page or 2 each, and you can check out an illustrated edition of Season 1, as well as still get the Season 2 stories for free. Now enjoy It's All Been Done Radio Hour. Welcome out to another episode of Meet the Cast of It's All Been Done Radio Hour. We are here with Shannon Watts today. Hello, Shannon.
Hey guys, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Hanging in there, long day at work.
Oh, I'm sorry. You are the first Meet the Cast person we've interviewed here that isn't actually part of the troupe, but you do have another job on Radio Hour, which we'll get to in a minute. I just thought it was worth noting here at the onset that you're not an actor in the troupe, so people may not recognize your name, but you've guest starred a whole bunch of times, and you're a script editor, so you are very involved with the show, and we've run out of the regular troupe members to interview anyway, so we thought we'd give well, we thought, you've done so much for the show, you deserved your own episode as well.
Aw, thanks.
Thank you. So, let's start with, when did you first get interested in performing?
Oh, wow. Well, I've been performing since I was a kid, mostly stage through high school and college, and then started getting into some on-screen stuff afterwards, mostly when I moved to Columbus. And then I heard kind of through the grapevine through a friend of mine about the Radio Hour program and checked it out a little bit and listened to a few of the podcasts that were available at the time and kind of just loved the program and wanted to be involved.
Oh, that's awesome. We'll talk more about you getting into the program here in a few minutes, but let's hear more about that early performing day. So did you start in elementary school?
Not so much in elementary school. I really kind of got into it in high school. I did sports and stuff like that and had fun with it, but I loved the theater director at my high school. He was fantastic and very adamant about getting people involved, even if they didn't think they were quite right for theater. If they had an interest, he would pull them in and find something for them to enjoy doing. And he was just really a great influence on us. Awesome.
Any particular roles that really stood out for you?
Well, we did a production my senior year called Mackinac, which was actually the story of Ruth Snyder, the first woman who was executed in the electric chair in the United States.
Oh, wow.
It was a pretty big competition piece that we did, and I had so much fun with that. I had small background roles, but I was heavily involved in the set and mask design for the show, and it did very well. We actually won state that year.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
What state was that?
That was in Michigan.
Okay. Is that where you're from?
I grew up there from about the time I was 3 until about 2005 when I moved to Columbus.
Nice. So you did some high school theater there. Did you just stick with the plays, or did you do any musicals?
Oh, nobody wants to hear me sing.
Well, you definitely said that before, but I wondered if maybe you did some chorus pieces in school.
No, I did not. When it came time for the spring musical that happened every year, I was involved more behind the scenes with the production aspect.
So you did behind the scenes for both plays and musicals. Did you find that pretty rewarding as well, or were you just itching to be out on stage and that was the closest you came in those productions?
I really love being behind the scenes and throwing my hands in there and helping mold and shape a project and seeing it come to life. So being on stage or in front of the camera is a blast. Don't get me wrong, I love doing it, but I have just as much fun behind the scenes.
What is your favorite thing to do behind the scenes?
I actually work on a lot of short film projects in the Columbus community, and I love being a production manager or a second AD.
Nice. So what would that entail?
Pretty much running the sets, being more of the go-between between the director and the cast and the rest of the crew so that the director can focus solely on what they're trying to get.
So you said you've done a number of short films. Most of those would be after high school, or did you start that when you were younger?
I actually did my very first film in high school. I was a background extra in a feature film that filmed in Holland, Michigan, where I went to high school. And it was actually directed and written by a former high school student who had graduated and, went out to Hollywood to do the big thing and kind of wanted to pay back the community. So when he was filming some scenes locally, he pulled a bunch of the old high school crew to come out there and help.
That's awesome. What movie was that?
It's called The Last Big Attraction. It had no play anywhere at all. It was a very small feature that was done, but it was fun. We got to play attendees at a big concert. We got out of school for the day.
Even better. So what brought you to Columbus?
I moved down here in 2005. Stayed with some friends for a bit, just kind of a change of scenery, and met some really great people and decided to stick around for a while.
You said you stayed with some friends. Were you looking for work here, or you just came to hang out with people?
Well, I actually moved down here and stayed with a friend of mine who already lived here and her family. And I was actually working for a restaurant at the time, so I was able to transfer locations down here without having to find a new place to work.
Oh, that's convenient.
Yeah, it was really great.
And then once you got here, did you get involved in the local theater scene at all?
I didn't, actually. When I got here, I really didn't get involved in the theater aspect at all. I kind of went straight more for short films and movies and TV.
Where did you find that kind of work?
I networked with some of the local Columbus groups. I started out with the Mid-Ohio Filmmakers Association. They were very great and gracious, introducing me and allowing me to make some great contacts while I was in Columbus.
And then you have traveled out when you lived here. You don't live here anymore, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But when you lived here, you traveled outside of the city a lot for work. Was it mostly Pennsylvania?
I would say my time was pretty equally split between Cleveland and the Pittsburgh area.
So was Columbus a good, convenient place to be to get to where other projects were happening?
It really was. And there was a lot of work to be had in Columbus as well, but it was nice being kind of centrally located to some of the bigger movie and TV markets as well.
I know one thing you did was you were a background extra in the show Outsiders, WGN America.
Yeah. Yes.
How many episodes of that did you end up doing?
I was loving the fact that I got to do 3 whole episodes. It was fantastic. I was very lucky.
That's awesome. And then you actually were there with some other local actors that Eric Sternberger, who's very involved in Mad Lab Theater, our wonderful host site for Radio Hour, was there at the same time as you, wasn't he?
He was there with one of the episodes that we did. Anybody who's actually seen the show would recognize the major fight scenes that happen with one of the main characters later in the second season. And he was actually there for one of the big fight scenes with me, so I got to hang out with him for the day.
Did you say you were in the season 2 premiere, that big opening with the lightning and everything on the hillside?
I was. That was 14 hours of craziness, but it was a blast.
Any particular memories from the set you'd like to share?
It was kind of surreal in different moments. A lot of the scenes that I was involved in filming didn't have all of the principal cast in them, at least not at the same time, but we had a really, really long filming day during one of the fight scenes with the lead character played by Cal Gallner, his character Hassel. And it was freezing. It was like 33 degrees and pouring down rain the whole evening. I remember that all of our holding tents and our catering tent and our storage tent for all of our belongings, everything flooded with about 2 feet of water.
Oh, man.
We had to wade through the water to try to get our belongings at the end of the night. And I think at least probably close to half of background extras left about halfway through the night. But for those of us that stuck it out, we had a good time and we made the best of it. And Kyle was incredibly gracious with all of us and, stopped the production at one point to thank all of us for sticking it out and how much he appreciated all of us being there and that it really helped his character kind of get into things, having all of us there cheering for him.
Oh, that's awesome. What other productions did you work on besides Outsiders?
I worked on the most recent Fast and the Furious film that came out about a year ago. They had some scenes that they filmed in the Cleveland area.
Awesome.
So that was a lot of fun.
So you found out about Radio Hour through a friend. Who is this friend?
RJ Van Sickle.
RJ Van Sickle, yeah, he's been a guest star for us.
Absolutely.
And I've known him for a while. How did you meet RJ?
RJ and I were cast to work on a short. It was supposed to be a feature, but it turned into a short after everything was done. We were cast, originally I was the lead female and he was the best friend to the lead male actor. We had some issues with the lead male actor not really working out for the role, and during the audition process, RJ had auditioned for the lead role, and when things kind of went south with the main actor that we had, I told the director, I said, look, RJ and I get along really great, we have great chemistry on camera, I don't think you should, go out and re-audition people, I think you should give the role to RJ, and the director looked through the audition again, and he goes, yeah, I think you're right. I think he'd be great for it. And, we've been friends since.
That's awesome. And how did Radio Hour come up between the two of you?
He had heard about one of the monthly auditions that was coming up, and he had seen a role in there that he was interested in auditioning for, and asked if I would co-audition with him to help out. And I said, yeah, absolutely, I'd love to. And I read through the audition packet, and there was another role there that I was interested in. I said, so I'll help you out if you help me out. And we kind of sent in a joint audition tape.
You did, and sadly, only you were cast that month. He did not get that role that first time, although we used him later. I've known him for years. We worked together at a high school job, and he dated one of my friends, so we were already in the same, or I'm sure we definitely partied together in college age. So, yeah, he was not unknown to me before, although I know him under a different name, Jeremiah. I don't know what this RJ stuff is.
That's his stage name.
Yeah, I know. I'm just kidding. But I'm glad he brought you to us, and I'm glad he also guest starred with us a couple of times. You said you checked out some podcast episodes before you auditioned. Which ones did you listen to?
I actually listened to a couple of the earlier Universe Journey.
You liked that segment? I
did. I thought it was a great segment. I loved the characters and the character choices and voices that the actors pulled into it. So I was like, this sounds like fun. I loved the idea of it being live but not memorized, so you could improvise a little bit more and have some fun with it.
Awesome. Now, you first guest starred in July 2016, which was an anniversary show for us, so those are usually kind of a big deal. That would have been our first anniversary show, though, so the first time we did one of those big anniversary shows, you ended up playing two roles. You were cast as Meredith in The Scary Dad. Did you know when you were cast as that part it was going to be reoccurring? I can't remember.
You did tell me when you offered the role that it would be reoccurring, yes.
Okay. So you knew when you signed up that you were required to come back.
Yes.
Not so much required as that we'd really like you to come back. And then you also filled in the Universe Journey that month when we had an actress that couldn't make it.
I did. It was fun.
You played an alien, a come-on, named Tiz, Ambassador Tiz. What were your first impressions of the troupe when you actually showed up and met everybody?
I took a minute and kind of stepped back because I didn't want to just interject myself right in there, but everybody was very welcoming and my kind of weirdos, so I was having fun.
I'm surprised to hear that. Usually people say we're awful to show up. No, I'm kidding. No, that's awesome. Was it intimidating to come into a show that was already a year in for the big anniversary show?
It was a little bit, especially with it being the anniversary show. It was a little intimidating, but I figured if you didn't like what I had to offer, you wouldn't want me there, so I just kind of rolled with it and made some good friends in the progress.
Awesome. So Meredith, the major character you played, she was in 5 or 6 episodes, I think 6, of The Scary Dead. What did you think of that character? How did you approach that? What was the development process?
I really had fun with that character. She's no nonsense, kind of a crazy hard ass. She was a little nutty, straightforward, very demanding, and it was a fun role to play. My husband was helping me, go through some of the lines, and he was like, this chick sounds right up your alley. You're going to have fun with this. So,
did you know she would be so integral to the groups all coming together? Can't remember how much we told you ahead of time.
I knew nothing coming into it other than kind of the baseline of the type of person that she was.
Okay.
So getting to experience her character arc a month at a time, more or less, was really interesting for me because I really didn't know what was going to come next until I got the next month's packet.
Were you surprised at some of the twists and turns Meredith took?
I really was. I was. The final episode was a lot of fun for me. A little weird, but a lot of fun.
Why a little weird?
Just, I didn't expect that last little bit, I guess, of a twist with them ending back up sort of together, but then dying.
Well, yeah, she was kind of one of the driving forces of a quartet of characters that really had a very messed up relationship there.
That was the dysfunctional Jerry Springer show, for sure.
Yeah, do you like zombie stuff?
It's funny, I really normally don't. That's my husband's thing. He loves the zombie stuff, The Walking Dead, all of that. And so I pick up on little bits of the episodes that he watches, and I could see correlations with some of the things happening, and I was like, okay, I kind of see where some of it's going, but normally that zombies aren't my thing, but being that it was more of a comedy aspect, I guess, was what drew it to me.
And we had many episodes in a row where you didn't even see zombies.
Exactly. No, it was a lot of fun because it's not normally something that I would do or that I would be involved in that type of a piece, just because I don't typically watch that kind of stuff myself, but it was a lot of fun.
Did you know that was for the zombie segment when you auditioned?
I did not.
Okay, I was going to say, I think we try to hide that a little bit.
It was well hidden in the audition dialogue.
And then another role you played Linda in Porn Star Detectives. And that one you did alongside RJ. You were the office manager, right, to his Craig. What was that like getting to work with RJ? On the show?
It was really great getting to work with him again. Our time on the movie that we worked on was kind of shortened more than we anticipated, and so he and I have become really good friends and spend time together when we can, but it was fun to be able to work with him again, for sure.
And then you also played a street person in Universe Journey. More or less, that's what you're credited as. I guess that was more of a very small role. And then you played Trixie in a Holly Harper commercial. That was a departure, different than the other roles you had played.
Very. It was definitely, that was a big departure from the roles I usually play. I just kind of threw everything to the wind and was like, I am going to just go for it with this one. I initially wasn't even going to audition for that particular role, but then I was like, you know what? Why not? Let's go for it. Let's do something different. So
yeah, that character wasn't such a good character.
No. She wasn't very smart either.
No, that was just a one-off. We never saw her again. Part of that could be because about that time you moved out of Columbus and we're no longer around to be on the show anymore.
I did move. My job that I work at full-time, the one that pays the bills, offered me a great promotion and a transfer, so I live outside of D.C. now.
But you were gracious enough, because you moved before we finished the Scary Dead arc, weren't you?
Yeah.
Didn't you? How many episodes did you travel back to do?
I did... Let's see, I think we did a rehearsal via Skype, and then it was the final episode that I came back for.
Yes, thank you very much for returning to finish out that story. I really appreciated not having to recast in the finale there.
I remember when I was telling you that I was moving, I could see the look on your face, the wheels churning, going, oh my gosh, what are we going to do with this final episode?
It's
back, I promise.
No, I understand. I appreciate that because it doesn't always work out that nicely that we can tie it up with the actors that started it. We've had some recast situations. So it's always nice to get somebody that is willing to make that extra effort, especially after you'd already done so many shows for us. I believe I said you were the 8th guest actor we'd ever had, and you have the distinction so far of being the most prevalent guest star that's not a troupe member. So we've had guest stars that appeared a little bit less than you that then became troupe members and now have done more episodes than you. As far as straight guest stars, you have the record by 2 right now, and that's likely to stay because there aren't many that are that far out that have guest starred that many times. I mean, normally people do 1, some might do 2 or 3. You have, I believe, 8 guest star months that you were in the show.
That sounds about right.
And honestly, had you not moved, you probably would have been offered a troupe membership. I think did I not tell you that?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Now.
Yeah, no, you had definitely met the threshold where you'd been in the show for about a year. You'd done a whole bunch of roles, and we are always looking for talented women. Our cast is a little more male heavy than we'd like to be. So yeah, that was definitely at the point where okay, it's about time to add you to the troupe. And before we could make that offer, you said you were leaving us for good.
Oh, I'm sad. I'm sorry.
Oh, you're fine. You're fine. We look forward to the day you're back in town and can guest star with us again.
It'll happen for sure.
I'd be disappointed if it didn't at some point. Because we'll work you in whenever you are available. Was there anything in the show that you would have liked to have done that you didn't get to do since you left town before?
I really would have loved the opportunity to get in on the production side of things a little bit.
Well, you're doing that a little bit now. Not long after you moved, you offered to take over as script editor for the show.
Yes.
Why did you decide to do that? You escaped us. You could have been free.
I know. Well, I do have a degree in English literature, and editing was something that I did quite a bit of in college. And I figured what better way to not only stay involved with a great program, but I get to read the scripts ahead of everybody else.
Almost everybody else. There's a few other people on the email distribution chain.
I get to see it before most people.
Yeah, you get to see it before most of the cast. We just have other people like directors and other consultants that get involved early on as well. What do you enjoy doing the script editing for this show, or is it because I know it's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work, but it's fun. I enjoy my process with it. I go through and I look at it completely analytically the first couple times through, making sure that everything makes sense and it flows and there's not any glaring grammatical errors in there somewhere. And then I go in and I like to look through, just kind of immerse myself in the story and make sure, to me, when I'm reading it, can I actually visualize everything that's on the page as something that's happening?
Does it help that you are familiar with a lot of the actors and the characters?
I think it really does, because I've gotten to the point now when I'm reading through, I'm not reading it in my own voice. I'm reading it in their character voices. And I'm able to kind of read a line and go, well, I really think that they would kind of read it this way versus this way. And
do you have to spend a lot of time digging back through old scripts and stories, or do you have a pretty good handle on everything that's happened now that we're so many episodes in?
I know. I've had to go. I went back initially when and I started re-looking through some of the first 3 or 4 months worth of scripts. Mm-hmm. From right out of the gate, just because I wasn't as familiar with those parts of the storyline.
Oh, sure.
But now it's kind of becoming second nature.
Any big surprises and things coming up that you want to hint at but you can't spoil? Anything that surprised you or leapt out at you as, oh my goodness, I'm really excited about that storyline?
There's some fun ones going on. Definitely for those that aren't able to make it to the shows regularly to see the actual broadcast, keep your eye on those podcasts because they're going to be really great when they hit.
Well, and now we just recently made available to the audience that they can go on Patreon and donate $10 and get the audio the week after we perform it. So they've got an option now that they can catch completely up if they want to just donate a little bit of money. And the people that attend the live shows will have a code in the program that'll be good for 30 days. So if you're at a live show and you want to catch up on one of the segments before you come back, you'll have that option.
Oh, that's awesome.
Hopefully that makes it a little easier for people, because we don't want to... we try to be a show you can drop in on, but sometimes some of the segments are are a little harder to do than others.
I could see how some of that would get a little bit confusing. Some of the segments would.
What's your favorite segment?
Oh, I have to pick one?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, other than my segment, which was awesome, even though it's ended.
I mean, we'll never top the Scary Dead, right?
I mean, how do you top that? Honestly, I have to say Universe Journey, only because that was the segment that really drew me into the radio hour to begin with. I really and I'm usually not really a sci-fi kind of gal, but I loved the characters and the way they were written and the way they interacted with each other. So I think that's my favorite.
Awesome. You know, that's my favorite too, and it's so many people's favorite. I think it might rub off that how much I care about it.
I have to say that I love all of the randomly goofy nicknames that the captain comes up with for Meow Meow.
For Meow Meow. Yeah, Nick used to improv those, and then he was getting to the point where after a year or so he was having trouble coming up with fresh things. So now we write them in the script and he changes them at will.
Yeah.
If he thinks of something. Any particular characters that, it doesn't have to be Universe Journey, but are there characters that you just really love?
I loved the character of Coco. I really loved that character. I had so much fun just watching that character evolve, and especially because I was there for most of the live shows that the character was involved in, so it was a lot of fun.
So I usually give people, when we're doing this, a chance to pitch me things, and typically that's because, for their parts. Obviously you don't have a part that's ongoing, but do you have any story ideas, that something you'd like to see happen? Or
Oh, wow. It's hard for me to come up with something right now because I'm trying to think in my head how far we are in the actual released podcasts, and I don't want to give away anything because I know more information than everybody. So
you do, and we do edit these. So if you say something that we need to cut, we'll cut it.
I'm really, and I know that the series may not continue forever, but I'm really loving the arc that the porn star detectives are taking. I absolutely love that, and it would be great to see more of that side arc explored a little bit.
Yeah, you say that as you've already been given the series finale to edit for the porn star
I know,
detectives.
but it would be so awesome to throw more of that in there, a little more of that backstory,
So what part of the backstory did you want to see?
Well, maybe a little bit more, I guess, of the interaction between our porn star detectives and the reason for the zombie apocalypse.
Gotcha. Yeah. Did you ever think that the porn star detectives were in the same universe as the Scary Dead?
I didn't, but it was awesome when I found out.
Well, I mean, they both shared Larry, so I feel like there were hints.
Like, the hints are there, especially, when you look into it more and you kind of really get into the characters and you're like, wait, this has got to be the same guy. It's got to be the same guy. But yeah, it was a really fun twist to stumble across.
To be fair, it's not on the podcast feed yet, but Larry has shown up in another segment as well, and it's probably not the same Larry because these are all different dimensions, but porn stars and Scary Dead happen to be the same dimension, so that was they kind of dovetail nicely together there at the end, and now the porn stars miniseries finale is kind of the origin story for the Scary Dead.
I know, it's fantastic. It's a little weird that now that the Scary Dead is over, but then you kind of find out how it started. So.
Right. Are you petitioning that there should be some kind of special episode that combines the surviving characters of both down the road?
Yes, even though I don't survive, but yes.
I mean, that is certainly something that has been floated and thought about, but I don't have a specific time frame at this point. If anybody survives, we know who survived the Scary Dead, but you don't. Yeah. You know who survives porn stars if you've read it yet. Most people do not. Unfortunately, RJ did not return to play Craig this past month. He was booked and he had to canceled on the day of the show, so we had to get a sub in to play Craig for his appearance. That's over now. Hopefully we'll get RJ back in the show again real soon. I mean, I liked him as Craig. I liked him even more in the Top Notch Angler as Harold. I thought he was really good in that.
Absolutely.
But enough about him. This isn't his episode.
He gets one later, maybe.
Maybe. He's got to... I mean, I don't think 2 guest spots is going to get him. That's all he's done so far. So if he keeps auditioning and comes back some more, maybe we can get him in here.
Oh, what a slacker. Tell him to get on it.
I know, right? And it's been over a year since he's been in the show, so...
We're going to have to get on him.
Absolutely. You said if you had stuck around, you'd like to be more involved in the production end of the show. What would be your ideal position?
Honestly, I would love to maybe not full-on direct a segment, but maybe co-direct a segment.
Well, we do have a rotating cast of directors, and we are happy to include those that are interested in doing such a thing.
Well, if you ever do the, collaboration episode of Scary Dead and Porn Star Detectives, keep me in the lineup.
You'll come back just to direct it.
I will come back solely to direct that.
I love it. Great enthusiasm. What else haven't we covered? What about hobbies? What do you like to do for fun when you're not doing this kind of thing?
Oh, wow. I love to travel, obviously. I'm all over the place all the time. I have a big trip coming up in September, actually. We're going to Dublin and Rome.
Wow. Dublin, Ohio. That's crazy.
No, Dublin, Ireland.
Oh, okay. Wow. That's a little bit further. Any favorite places you've been?
Hong Kong was definitely my favorite so far.
Is it hard to go someplace where English isn't the primary language? That's what always worries me about such a trip.
I was worried about that initially, and there is, quite a bit of a language barrier in certain areas of that location, but honestly, a lot of people at least nominally speak English or understand what you're trying to get across. So it's really not as difficult to communicate as you think.
Yeah, that's cool. So you travel. What else do you do?
I travel. I like food. I love beer.
Do you like to cook, or do you just like to consume?
No. I hate cooking.
And you're a mother as well. We don't have to get into that, but just that I'm sure keeps you very busy.
It does. She's 9 now, and we just went through her first full-on haircut debacle this week.
Oh, no. Yeah, I saw the picture. I'm sorry.
Well, it's fixed now.
Good.
Suffice it to say, I took her to a salon where apparently the lady didn't understand how to cut hair and should not have been charging for it. I had to take her somewhere else yesterday to have that fixed.
And then we like to end these things with you have to answer a question from someone else. And I don't know if you listened to the most recent Meet the Cast that went live. Karen Perta, did you overlap with Karen?
I met Karen.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, I thought she started before you left. She was recently added to the troupe, so she did the last Meet the Cast, and I made her give me a question, even though we didn't know who was going to be next, because I hadn't decided that, of course we need to do Shannon. So her question is, what's on your bucket list?
Ooh, that's a good question.
It is.
Wow. I would love to learn how to sail.
Sailboat, huh?
Yes, like a full-on, the big sailboat, the whole 9. Yeah, I would love to learn how to do that.
Living outside of D.C., you're not too far from water.
Not too bad. It's a couple hours, but yeah.
Oh, that far? Oh, okay.
To get to where you'd be safe to sail that kind of a boat, I think, yeah.
Ah, okay. I gotcha. Need to be out on the open waters of the ocean.
Yeah, with a little less traffic.
Now, we don't have another Meet the Cast lined up. Nobody else that we've deemed deserving yet. I'm sure we'll come up with somebody. But we need a random question for you, for the next person.
Okay, here's one. If you could have dinner with any actor, living or not, who would it be and why?
Gotta be an actor, huh?
Has to be an actor.
I think the people around Radio Hour probably know a few actors, so that's a good question. Yeah, so thank you very much for talking to me and doing this episode. I'm excited to get it on the podcast, and I'm glad you've continued to work with us, even though you left us.
I only kind of half left, right?
Absolutely. No, you're still in email chains. You still get the scripts, so that's not fully left.
And at some point, I will come back for a guest star.
I sure hope so.
It's All Been Done Radio Hour number 130. Meet the Cast number 22, Shannon Marie Watts. Please check out our website, it's allbeendoneradiohour.com, and support us at patreon.com/IABD. If you donate $10 or more, you'll get access to audio from all of our recent shows before they get onto the podcast feed, because we're running almost a year ahead at this point. So definitely check that out so that you can donate. It also would help us if you follow us on social media at IABD Presents. And you can also follow It's All Been Done Radio Hour's Facebook page. And lastly, if you would please rate and review us on iTunes or Podcast Republic or whatever app or service you use to get this podcast, that would be greatly appreciated. That is probably the number one thing you can do to help spread the word about this podcast and help other people find it. So rate and review us. Thank you very much. Have a great week. It's All Been Done presents
Who's Got the Time?